Pre-competition routine. A pre-competition routine is what you do prior to your activity and or competition and or event. The pre-competition routine starts, I want to say, weeks and months and days before the actual competition, leading up to the event that you're going to compete at. Now, at the event is the culmination of the pre-competition routine. Now, what does that mean? Prior to your event, you want to have a mindset and activities that you're going to do to get your mind ready and your body ready. I think getting your heart rate up to a certain beats per minute is critical, and generally you can say when your heart rate gets up to a certain beats per minute for a length of amount of time, when you start to sweat, that is probably the time allotment that is going to be good for just about everybody. Everyone's going to be a little bit different, and everyone's going to maybe have a different prescription for what they actually do. But what I'm going to try to do now is break it down into something that you can do every single time. What normally happens when people compete? When people compete, normally their minds and their bodies are ready to go. What they do prior to that, though, is the critical part, and that's what we're going to focus on today. Have you ever been to a competition or an event and you've seen people wandering around aimlessly, not necessarily knowing what they're going to do next? Or maybe that's happened to you. Maybe you got to warm up and you saw someone doing something and you thought, well, she's a good wrestler, she's a good competitor, she's done this and she's done that, I'm going to do that too. Had you thought about doing that before the competition? Or maybe you've done like I've done. I've seen actual competitions on television, and I've seen specific routines that the athletes are going through and or maybe their coach is putting them through. The only problem sometimes or challenge that I have when coaches put athletes through training, pre-competition routines, is what happens when the coach isn't there. Now the athlete may have gotten so attached to that specific type of pre-competition routine that they don't know what to do when the coach isn't there. I'm going to take it one step further though, and I'm going to take it a couple of steps prior to the actual competition. The morning that you wake up is important. Normally, this probably happens to you every day, but normally when you wake up, there's a certain routine that you go through. I'm going to call that a part of the pre-competition routine. And when you eat breakfast, I'm going to call that a part of the pre-competition routine. And when you get to the event, I'm going to call that a part of the pre-competition routine. I'm going to take it one step further though. The nights leading up to the competition. In our sport, or in wrestling, or in weigh-in sports, there are things you actually have to do prior to you even getting to the point of competing. So that means you probably would have nutritionally done the right thing. You probably would have the weeks and months before done the right type of training. All of that is part of the pre-competition routine, and I want you to be thinking about that as I give you specifically the components of the day of the workout or the day of the competition. Okay, let's go back again to the morning of the workout or the morning of the competition. You wake up, you say certain things to yourself that are getting you in the right frame of mind competitively and mentally and physically. Once you say things in your brain, they can physically start to send messages to your body to get ready. You perhaps would want to take a warm shower and get the muscles just a little bit loosened while you're in the shower. Maybe you're saying certain things to yourself. Of course, you want to have a routine that you normally do when you're looking in the mirror, saying things to yourself. Maybe you're brushing your teeth, you're flossing your teeth, you're using mouthwash. All of these things are important. I'm just giving you an example so that later on when you go back and you create your own routine, these are the same type of things that you're going to be doing all the time. Now, of course, you need to be flexible. Why do you need to be flexible? Because sometimes you're in a foreign country and they don't have the same things that you have. Sometimes you're with a different coach and they're going to put you through a warm-up that you may not necessarily want to do. Sometimes you're going to be in a different place where they're not going to have the same type of favorite food that you like. So you need to be flexible in all respects all the time. Because if you are flexible and you've trained your mind to be flexible, now when that, that little piece of the routine that you're not normally able to do, or you cannot do it because of XYZ factor, man, your mind is ready and you're able to get right back in there. Okay, so you've woken up, you've said certain things to yourself, you've maybe done whatever you need to do in front of the mirror, your hair is ready, your everything is ready, now you're leaving. Perhaps you even have this, maybe you eat a little something before you leave your room and or wherever you're going to eat. I suggest you wake up a couple of hours, maybe 3 to 4 hours before the competition. That way, let's say your competition's at 9. If you wake up at 8 o'clock, now you got to, cram all that stuff in there, and that can create a sense of anxiety. If your competition is at 9, I would suggest waking up at 5 or 6. Now, of course, if that's early for you, then that's part of why I'm saying this. You need to be practicing this stuff all through the year. Most people, students in the U.S., they wake up at about 6 or 7 when they go to school. Depending on what type of training environment you are, if you're doing early morning workouts, maybe you wake up at 5:30, 6:30. I suggest if you're waking up that early during the week, you want to have that same routine for the competition. So you get up early, you do what you need to do right out of bed, you maybe eat something prior to leaving your room if that's not what you normally do, and if you eat in a restaurant or cafeteria, then you want to have that same type of format. All along, you're explaining to yourself, okay, this is my day, this is what I'm here to do, I've been doing all this training. You're feeding yourself productive, positive talk so that you can get yourself ready. And maybe you have imagery in there as well. Maybe you're seeing yourself going through the motions of your skills. When I get to the competition, this is what I'm going to do. If I have X amount of time, I'm going to do this. I kind of said the flexibility issue. I'm going to bring that up again. Maybe you have 2 or 3 or 4 different types of workouts that you do, and or warm-ups. Why is that important? Sometimes you'll find when you get to these tournaments, they repair the brackets, for instance. Now instead of having an hour to warm up, now you've got 3 hours to warm up. So are you going to warm up for 3 hours? No, that would be ridiculous. You'd be too tired. So maybe you would do a 20 or 30 minute warm up, maybe a little bit less, a little bit more. You find out that your bracket is repaired. Now you've got the routine of, okay, when this happens, I'm actually going to do this. As a part of your pre-competition routine, you have options, just like you would with your wrestling skills. As an example with a double leg, if I shoot a double leg and the person sprawls, maybe I do a cut across, or maybe I change off to a single leg. With your pre-competition routine, you want to have that flexibility too. So you have these built-in options in case of emergency. An emergency in this sense means things change, so I need to change. That way, you're ready. You're ready at all the time. Now you have specific physical things that you're going to do in your warm-up, and I suggest they be flexible too. You maybe have 4 or 5 specific things that you're going to do all the time. Now if the coach is running your warm-up for you, maybe you do that as a part of your flexibility training, where, you know what, I know the coach is going to do this, but there's certain key things that I'm also going to do to get myself ready. At the end of the pre-competition routine, you should feel good. And if you don't feel good, then maybe there are some things that you can say to yourself so that you do feel good. You know what? I've been through training for the last 6 or 7 months, and I'm ready no matter what. Whatever they throw in front of me is going to be what I'm going to be able to take care of. A large part of you being prepared and ready to compete and ready to excel is what you actually say to yourself, what actually goes. You know, you can say what foods go into your body nutritionally, and I say what food goes into your mind psychologically. What you're saying to yourself, what you're seeing yourself doing, a lot of times has a real effect on how you compete. So again, just to review, the pre-competition routine starts maybe weeks and months ahead of time, and you should go through this just about every single day. And when you're competing, especially in practice matches and or competitions leading up to the national championships or world championships or the Olympic Games, you want to practice this over and over again, and then built in some flexibility just in case you need to go to option B, you need to go to option C, you need to go to option D. If you have a pre-competition routine, guess what starts to happen? You start having more consistent performances. You start feeling good about yourself because, you know what, I've done this, that means I can do it again. And that's where a lot of confidence comes from. Because you've done something once, you feel like you're able to do it again. If you develop a pre-competition routine and you notice you're nervous, man, maybe that becomes a part of it. I always feel nervous, and every time I feel nervous, I have good performances. That again goes back to the self-talk. So I just want you to feel good about what you're doing prior to a competition. Make certain that you have a pre-competition routine that is routine and it has flexibility built into it. Pre-competition routine. You can find out more information like this at Coach Shannyn Talks on YouTube.com, Coach Shannyn.